My father insisted on 85% of my paycheck to support my sister and said the remaining 15% was mine, but when I refused, he threw me out. Years later, they turned up at my doorstep begging for money. The day my own father looked me in the eye and demanded 85% of my hard-earned salary, my world fractured. I knew, with a sickening jolt, that everything I'd fought for was about to be challenged, and there was no turning back. I was barely a few weeks into my first real job, finally sorting through my own bills at the kitchen table, the crisp air of early autumn just starting to settle over Denver. This job, as a junior accountant at a mid-size firm, was my first taste of real independence after years of juggling school and part-time gigs. The pay wasn't much, just enough to cover my tiny studio apartment and groceries, but it was mine. I'd earned it, graduating with honors while my older sister, Sophia, had dropped out of college twice and was now back living at home. Robert, my father, walked in then. He had that specific look, the one that meant he'd already made a decision and expected everyone to fall in line. My mother, Sarah, trailed behind him, wringing her hands, a nervous habit she always fell into when something awful was brewing. "We need to talk about your finances," he announced, pulling out a chair directly across from me. I glanced up from the stack of envelopes. "What about them?" "Sophia needs help." He said it like that explained everything. Her divorce is getting ugly, and she can't afford a decent lawyer. Plus, she has Alex and Lily to think about, and that apartment she's renting is practically falling apart. Sophia's marriage to Mark had been a disaster from day one. Everyone saw it but her. He cheated, drained their joint account repeatedly, and finally left her for someone he met at a bar. It was a mess, absolutely, but it wasn't my mess. "That's terrible," I said, choosing my words carefully. "But I'm not sure what that has to do with my finances." Robert leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "Your family. Family helps family. Your mother and I think you should contribute to Sophia's expenses until she gets back on her feet." The word contribute should have tipped me off, but I was still naive enough to expect something reasonable. "How much are we talking about?" 85% of your monthly salary." I actually laughed. The sound came out sharp, disbelieving. "You're joking." "I'm completely serious." His expression didn't waver. "You're young, you don't have kids, and you're living in that tiny apartment. You don't need much. Sophia has 2 children, Alex and Lily, who need stability. They deserve better than what Mark left them with." Sarah finally spoke up, her voice weak. "It would just be temporary, sweetheart. Just until Sophia finds a job and gets the child support sorted out." I slowly set down the pen I'd been holding. 85% would leave me with about $500 a month. That won't even cover my rent, let alone food, gas, and student loans. "You can move back home," Robert said, as if that solved everything. "Your old room is still there. You won't have expenses, so 15% will be plenty for gas and personal items." The trap crystallized before me: move back home, hand over my income, become the family's ATM while Sophia rebuilt her life on my dime. I'd be stuck for years, watching them live off my work while I had nothing to show for it. "No," I said, simply. Robert's face darkened. "What did you just say?" I said, "No, I'm not giving you 85% of my salary. I worked hard for this job. I have my own expenses and my own life to build." "Your own life?" He stood so fast his chair scraped against the floor. "Your sister is drowning, and you're worried about your own life? What kind of selfish person have you become?" "The kind who pays her own bills," I shot back, standing to meet him. "Sophia made her choices. She married Mark against everyone's advice, dropped out of school twice, and refused to get a job while they were together. Those were her decisions, not mine." Sarah gasped like I'd slapped her. "How can you be so cruel? Those children didn't ask for any of this." "And neither did I." My voice shook now, but I kept going. "I love Alex and Lily, but they're not my responsibility. I'm 23 years old. I'm supposed to be starting my career, my life, not bankrolling someone else's recovery from bad choices. Robert stepped closer, his face inches from mine. If you don't help your sister, you're not welcome in this house. You want to be selfish and keep your money? Fine, but don't come crying to us when you need something. Are you seriously kicking me out because I won't give you most of my paycheck? I'm telling you that family comes first. If you can't understand that, then maybe you need to figure things out on your own. He crossed his arms. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. Either you agree to help Sophia properly, or you pack your things and leave. I looked at my mother, hoping for some support, some sign that she thought this was insane. She avoided my eyes, staring at the floor instead. That's when I knew I was truly alone in this. Then I guess I'm leaving, I said quietly. The next morning, I packed everything I owned into my beat-up Honda Civic. Clothes, books, my laptop, the few personal items I cared about. Robert watched from the porch, arms crossed, his face set in granite. Sarah stood in the doorway, crying, but she didn't try to stop any of it. Sophia pulled up just as I was loading the last box. She got out of her car and walked over, her expression sympathetic but not apologetic. You're really leaving? She asked. Robert gave me an ultimatum. I made my choice. She bit her lip. I never asked for this, you know. Robert came up with the whole thing on his own. But you didn't tell him no, did you? I slammed the trunk shut. You didn't say it was too much, or that I shouldn't have to give up my entire income. I have kids to feed, she said defensively. Mark left us with nothing. What am I supposed to do? Get a job? File for child support? Do what every other single parent does. I walked around to the driver's side. But don't stand there and act like you're not complicit in this. You knew what Robert was asking of me, and you were fine with it as long as it benefited you. That's not fair. Neither is asking me to sacrifice everything I've worked for because you made bad choices. I got in the car and started the engine. Good luck, Sophia. I really do hope things get better for you, but it won't be with my money. I drove away without looking back, even though I could feel their eyes on me the entire way down the street. The first year was brutal. I worked 60-hour weeks, picked up freelance bookkeeping on weekends, and lived in a studio apartment with a broken heater the landlord refused to fix. I ate ramen and rice, shopped at thrift stores, and walked everywhere to save on gas. Every month was a struggle to make rent and keep the lights on. My entry-level salary of $42,000 a year sounded decent on paper, but after taxes, student loans, and basic expenses, there wasn't much breathing room. But I was free. Nobody was demanding my paycheck. Nobody was guilt-tripping me about family obligations. I answered to no one but myself. I didn't hear from my parents for 6 months. Then Sarah started sending occasional text messages, brief and awkward, asking how I was doing. I kept my responses short. I was fine. Work was fine. Everything was fine. Sophia never reached out at all. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard bits and pieces about what was happening back home. Sophia had moved in with my parents. Mark was dodging child support payments. Robert had taken out a loan to cover Sophia's lawyer fees. Sarah was watching the kids while Sophia worked part-time at a grocery store. I felt a twinge of guilt whenever I heard these updates, but I pushed it down. I made the right choice. I had to believe that. By year 2, things started improving. I got a promotion at work and a raise that finally let me breathe a little. I moved into a better apartment with actual heating. I started building savings for the first time in my life. Small things, perhaps, but they felt like massive victories after everything I'd been through. Year 3 brought another promotion, this time to senior accountant. My salary doubled from where I'd started. I began working toward my CPA certification, taking evening classes while maintaining my full-time job. The work was exhausting, studying for 4 separate exams while working full-time, but I loved it. I was building something real, something that belonged entirely to me. I bought my first new car, a practical sedan with good gas mileage and a warranty. I took a vacation to the coast and stayed in a real hotel instead of a hostel. I opened a retirement account and started contributing regularly. These might sound like normal things everyone does, but to me, they were miracles. Each one represented freedom, independence, proof that I'd made the right choice, even when it felt impossible. Year 4 was transformative. I passed all 4 sections of my CPA exams, joined a prestigious accounting firm downtown, and nearly tripled my original salary. I bought a small townhouse in a nice neighborhood, nothing fancy, but mine. I dated someone seriously for the first time since leaving home, though it didn't work out long-term. I made new friends, people who didn't know anything about my family drama. To them, I was just someone who worked hard and enjoyed hiking on weekends. I liked being that person, uncomplicated and unburdened by the past. My mother's texts became more frequent during year 5, more pointed. She'd mention casually that Sophia was struggling, that money was tight, that it would be nice if I could help. I never responded to those messages. Around year 4, something shifted in how I viewed myself. I'd spent so long proving I could survive that I forgot to actually live. A colleague at work, Chloe, noticed I never took vacation days and rarely joined the team for happy hours. "You're allowed to enjoy your success," she told me one afternoon while we were reviewing quarterly reports. "You don't have to keep punishing yourself for making the right choice." Her words hit harder than they should have. I realized I'd been living in survival mode for so long that I didn't know how to exist any other way. That weekend, I booked a spontaneous trip to Chicago, something I'd wanted to do for years but always talked myself out of. Walking across the Michigan Avenue Bridge, feeling the wind in my hair and the sun on my face, I finally let myself feel proud. Not just relieved or justified, but genuinely proud of what I'd accomplished. I'd taken nothing and built something real. Around this time, I also started volunteering at a women's shelter, helping residents with basic financial literacy, teaching them how to budget, how to open bank accounts, how to rebuild credit. Many of them were escaping difficult situations where they'd been financially controlled. One woman, Michelle, reminded me of myself in those early days. She'd left her partner with $200 and the clothes on her back. She was terrified and overwhelmed, convinced she'd made a terrible mistake. "You did the hardest part," I told her during one of our sessions. "You left. Everything else is just details you'll figure out one step at a time." She cried, and I understood completely. Sometimes you need someone to tell you that survival isn't weakness. It's the bravest thing you can do. Through the volunteer work, I met other women with similar stories. We formed an informal support group, meeting monthly for dinner and conversation. None of us were related by blood, but we became family in ways that mattered more. We celebrated each other's victories and supported each other through setbacks. One of the women, Jessica, got her nursing degree after 3 years of night school. Another, Maya, started her own cleaning business and hired other women from the shelter. We were all building lives on our own terms, and it felt powerful to be part of that community. My career continued its upward trajectory into year 5. The accounting firm I worked for landed a major client, a tech startup going through rapid expansion. They needed someone to restructure their entire financial system, and the partners assigned me to lead the project. It was the biggest responsibility I'd ever been given, managing a team of 5 accountants and working directly with the startup's executives. The first few months were intense, 16-hour days and constant pressure, but I thrived on it. The startup CEO, a woman named Victoria, who had bootstrapped her company from nothing, took me aside one day after a particularly grueling meeting. "You remind me of myself 10 years ago," she said. "Hungry, focused, unwilling to accept limitations. Whatever you're running from or toward, it's working for you." I didn't tell her the whole story, but I appreciated the recognition. She became an unexpected mentor, offering advice on negotiation tactics and career advancement that I couldn't have gotten anywhere else. When we successfully completed the financial restructure ahead of schedule and under budget, the firm's senior partners called me into their office. I thought I was getting another difficult assignment. Instead, they offered me junior partnership. At 28, I became one of the youngest partners in the firm's history. The salary increase was substantial, more money than I'd ever imagined making. I sat in my car after accepting the offer and just breathed, letting the reality sink in. 5 years earlier, my father had demanded I give up 85% of my income because he didn't think I needed much. Now, I was earning more in a month than I'd made in an entire year back then. With a new position came new challenges. I had equity in the firm now, which meant my financial decisions affected other people. I took courses on investment strategy and business management, determined to be worthy of the trust the partners had placed in me. I also bought a better house, a 3-bedroom craftsman in a neighborhood with good schools and mature trees. I didn't need 3 bedrooms, but I wanted them. I wanted space and possibilities. And the option to host the chosen family I'd built. My friend Chloe helped me move in, along with Jessica and Maya from the support group. We spent the afternoon hauling boxes and arranging furniture, laughing and ordering too much pizza. "Look at you," Chloe said, standing in my new living room with a beer in her hand. "You've got the career, the house, the life. You did it." "We did it," I corrected, gesturing to everyone in the room. "None of us got here alone." That night, after everyone left, I walked through my empty house and felt something I hadn't felt in years: complete peace. This was mine, earned through my own effort, untainted by obligation or guilt. I started dating again, too, though nothing serious. A few dinners here and there, some promising connections that fizzled out naturally. I wasn't in a rush. For the first time in my adult life, I was content being alone, which made me better company when I wasn't. One date, a teacher named Daniel asked about my family over sushi. I gave him the abbreviated version. We were estranged, complicated history. Nothing I wanted to get into on a second date. "That must be hard," he said sympathetically. It was, I admitted. But I've built something better. Family isn't just about blood. He nodded like he understood, though I could tell he didn't really. People with normal families rarely do. But I appreciated that he didn't push for details or try to convince me that reconciliation was always the answer. The holidays were still difficult. Thanksgiving and Christmas carried the ghost of what I'd lost. Even though I filled the days with friendships and volunteering, I'd spend Christmas morning at the shelter, helping serve breakfast, then go to Chloe's house for dinner with her family. Her parents always welcomed me warmly, treating me like another daughter. It was kind, and I was grateful, but it also highlighted the absence of my own parents in sharp relief. One Christmas Eve, Chloe's mom cornered me in the kitchen while I was helping with dishes. "You don't have to tell me what happened with your family," she said gently. "But I want you to know that whatever it was, it's their loss. You're a remarkable young woman, and any parent should be proud to have raised you." I had to step outside after that, overwhelmed by unexpected emotion. I stood on their back porch in the cold December air, watching my breath fog in front of me, and let myself feel the grief I'd been pushing down for years. I grieved for the parents who couldn't see my worth beyond my earning potential. I grieved for the sister who chose the easy path over the right one. I grieved for the niece and nephew who barely knew me. But mostly, I grieved for the version of myself who'd sat at that kitchen table 6 years ago, young and hopeful, not yet knowing how much she'd have to sacrifice for her freedom. After that Christmas, something shifted. The grief didn't disappear, but it transformed into acceptance. My family had made their choices, and I'd made mine. Both things could be true without one negating the other. I threw myself deeper into work as year 6 began, taking on the most challenging clients and mentoring younger accountants the way Victoria had mentored me. I wanted to be the person for them that I'd needed when I was starting out. Someone who believed in their potential and pushed them to reach for more. One of my ments, a young woman named Emily, fresh out of college, reminded me achingly of my younger self. She worked twice as hard as anyone else, stayed late without being asked, and constantly worried she wasn't good enough. "You're more than good enough," I told her after she'd successfully handled a difficult audit. "Stop waiting for permission to believe in yourself." She looked at me with such gratitude that I had to look away. I saw myself in her desperation to prove her worth, and it broke my heart a little. I also started investing more aggressively, building wealth that would carry me through retirement and beyond. I met with financial advisors, studied market trends, diversified my portfolio. Money had been the weapon Robert tried to use against me, but I transformed it into armor instead. By the time I turned 29, I had more in savings and investments than my parents had accumulated in their entire lives. I didn't feel smug about it, just quietly satisfied. I'd won the game they tried to rig against me. The increased income from partnership meant that I could do more than just survive or even thrive. I could make a real difference. I increased my donations to the women's shelter, started a scholarship fund for women returning to school after financial hardship, and invested in Maya's cleaning business. "You don't have to do this," Maya said when I offered her an interest-free loan to expand. "I know," I told her. "That's why I want to." Helping others succeed felt better than any personal achievement. I was using my freedom and resources to create more freedom for other people. That felt like the best possible revenge against the family who tried to trap me in obligation. Around this time, my Aunt Carol reached out. She was Sarah's younger sister, someone I'd always liked but hadn't spoken to since the falling out. She'd heard through family gossip about my success and wanted to reconnect. We met for lunch at a cafe downtown. She looked older, grayer, but her smile was the same. "I'm not here to mediate or guilt-trip you," she said immediately. "I just wanted to tell you that I think you did the right thing. What your father asked was unconscionable." Her support, even years too late, meant more than I expected. "Did you tell my parents that?" "Many times. It caused quite a few arguments at family gatherings. Your mother would cry. Your father would get defensive. And I kept pointing out that they tried to financially exploit their own daughter." She sipped her coffee. "Eventually, they stopped inviting me to things. I'm sorry you got dragged into it. Don't be. Some things are worth taking a stand over. You're my niece, and what they did to you was wrong. I wasn't going to pretend otherwise just to keep the peace." We started having regular lunches after that. Carol became a bridge to the family I'd lost. Though she was careful never to pressure me about reconciliation, she'd share updates about Alex and Lily, and I'd tell her about work and my volunteer activities. Through her, I learned that Sophia had finally gotten her act together to some degree. She'd been promoted to assistant manager at the grocery store and was taking online business classes. The kids were doing well in school. My parents were struggling, but stable. I felt distant relief at these updates, like hearing about acquaintances rather than close family. The emotional connection had been severed too thoroughly to simply patch back together. Late in year 6, everything came full circle in a way I never expected. I was working from home on a Tuesday afternoon when my doorbell rang. I glanced at my security camera app and froze. Robert stood on my doorstep, looking older than I remembered. His shoulders were hunched, his face lined with stress. Sarah stood beside him, clutching her purse like a lifeline. I considered not answering. I could pretend I wasn't home, let them stand there until they gave up and left. But curiosity won out. I needed to know why they were here after 5 years of silence. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. "What do you want?" Robert cleared his throat. "Can we come inside? We need to talk." "We can talk right here." He glanced at the neighbors' houses, clearly uncomfortable with having this conversation in public. "Please, just give us a few minutes." Against my better judgment, I stepped aside and let them in. They looked around my townhouse, taking in the nice furniture, the artwork on the walls, the comfortable life I'd built. "You've done well for yourself," Sarah said softly. "What do you want?" I repeated, crossing my arms. Robert sat down on my couch without being invited. "We need help. Financial help." The laugh that escaped me was harsh. "You're kidding." "I'm serious. We're in real trouble." He ran a hand through his thinning hair. "The loan I took out for Sophia's legal fees. It had a variable interest rate. The payments ballooned, and we couldn't keep up. The bank is threatening foreclosure on the house." "And Sophia?" I asked. "What about her? Isn't she helping?" Sarah twisted her hands together. "She's doing her best, but between rent and the kids and everything else, there's not much left over. Mark finally started paying child support, but it barely covers groceries." "So, you came here." I kept my voice flat, emotionless. "After 5 years of nothing, you show up asking for money." "You're our daughter," Robert said, and I heard the edge of desperation in his voice. "We made mistakes. I can admit that. But we're still family. We need you. You told me I wasn't welcome in your house unless I gave you 85% of my salary. You kicked me out for refusing to bankrupt myself for Sophia's problems." The words came out cold and measured. "Now you want me to save you from the consequences of your own choices." "We were wrong," Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. "We should have supported you. We should have been proud of how hard you worked instead of asking you to sacrifice everything. But please, we're losing the house. We have nowhere else to turn. You had 5 years to apologize. 5 years to reach out and rebuild our relationship. Instead, you only contacted me when you needed money." I walked to the door and opened it. "The answer is no." Robert stood up, his face flushing with anger. "After everything we did for you, we raised you, fed you, paid for your education, you paid for the state school I chose because it was affordable," I interrupted. "I worked 3 jobs to cover living expenses because you spent all your savings on Sophia's wedding and her first tuition before she dropped out. Don't rewrite history to make yourselves look better. Please," Sarah begged. "We're desperate. If we lose the house, we'll have nowhere to go. Sophia and the kids will be homeless. Sophia is a grown woman with a job. She can find an apartment like everyone else." I gestured to the open door. "You need to leave now. You've become heartless," Robert spat. "Money changed you into someone I don't even recognize." "No, Robert. Money freed me from people who only valued me for what I could provide. There's a difference." They left without another word, my mother sobbing into her hands as my father led her to their car. I watched them drive away, then closed the door and leaned against it. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel sad. Mostly, I felt tired. 3 weeks later, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "This is Laura from Sophia's phone," a woman's voice said. "I'm her neighbor. Your sister wanted me to call because she's afraid you won't answer if you see her number." "What does she want?" "She wants to talk to you." "Just a talk," she says. "No money, no favors. She has something she needs to say." I almost hung up, but something in the woman's voice made me hesitate. "Put her on." There was a rustling sound, then Sophia's voice. "Thank you for not hanging up. You have 5 minutes." "I'm sorry." The words came out in a rush. "I'm sorry for letting Robert pressure you like that. I'm sorry for not standing up for you. I'm sorry for being a coward who took the easy way out and let you be the villain." I didn't respond, waiting to see where this was going. "After you left, things got worse before they got better. Mark kept dodging child support. Robert's loan payments kept increasing. Sarah had to get a part-time job at 62 because they were drowning. And through all of it, they kept talking about how ungrateful you were, how selfish you'd become. And you believed them at first? Yeah, it was easier than admitting I was the problem. But watching them struggle, watching everything fall apart, I realized something. If I'd just gotten my act together from the start, none of this would have happened. I made the mess. You were right to refuse to clean it up. Is this your way of asking for money? No. She sounded exhausted. This is my way of telling you I don't blame you for saying no when they showed up. You don't owe us anything. You never did. I just wanted you to know that at least one person in this family understands why you left and why you won't help. What are you going to do about the house? Sarah and Robert are selling it. They'll downsize to a small rental and rebuild from there. I'm getting a second job and looking for cheaper childcare options. We'll figure it out, the same way you did. She paused. I don't expect forgiveness or for us to have a relationship. I just wanted to tell you the truth. I appreciate that, I said carefully. For what it's worth, I do hope things improve for your kids. They didn't ask for any of this. Neither did you. She hung up before I could respond. I set down the phone and stared at it for a long time. 6 months passed before I heard anything else. This time, it was Sarah who called from her own number. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity got the better of me again. What? I answered. I'm not calling to ask for money, she said immediately. I'm calling to apologize. Really? Apologize? Not just because I want something. I'm listening. We lost the house. We moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in a cheaper part of town. Robert took a part-time job doing inventory at a warehouse. Sophia is working 60 hours a week between 2 jobs. She took a shaky breath. It's hard. Really hard. And it made me understand what you went through when you first left. And you were right. We had no right to ask what we asked of you. We had no right to kick you out for saying no. I was a coward for not standing up to Robert, and I've regretted it every single day for 5 years. Why are you telling me this now? Because I want you to know the truth before it's too late. Robert had a heart attack last week. He's okay, but it scared me. I realized I might not have much time left to make things right with you, even if right just means acknowledging how wrong we were. My chest tightened. Is he going to be okay? Yes. The doctors say he needs to reduce stress and change his diet, but he'll recover. The experience changed him, though. He's been different since he came home from the hospital. Different how? Quieter, more reflective. He keeps talking about regrets and mistakes. I think he wants to call you himself, but he's afraid you'll hang up on him. I probably would, I admitted. I understand. I just wanted you to know that we see things clearly now. You were the strong one. You knew your worth and refused to let us diminish it. I wish I'd been that strong for you. We talked for another 10 minutes, awkward and halting, but more honest than any conversation we'd had in years. I didn't promise anything or offer reconciliation, but I didn't slam the door completely shut either. 3 months after that call, Robert reached out via email. A short message, just 3 paragraphs, admitting he'd been wrong and asking if we could talk sometime. I didn't respond immediately, letting the message sit in my inbox for 2 weeks while I decided what I wanted. Eventually, I replied, not with forgiveness or warm feelings, but with an acknowledgement that I'd received his email and might be willing to have a conversation in the future. Baby steps. A year after my parents first showed up at my door, I met my mother for coffee. Neutral ground, a busy cafe where neither of us could make a scene. We talked about surface things mostly, but it was a start. She told me about the kids, how Alex was doing well in high school and Lily had joined the soccer team. She talked about her job at a bookstore and Robert's recovery. She didn't ask for money or favors. She just talked. I told her about my work, about the promotion I'd received and the mentorship program I'd started at my firm. I showed her pictures of a hiking trip I'd taken with friends. Normal things, the kind of things families share. It wasn't reconciliation, exactly. The wounds were too deep for that, the betrayal too fundamental. But it was acknowledgement and understanding that we were all trying to move forward from a terrible situation. I never did help with the house. I never gave them money or bailed them out of their financial troubles. They figured it out on their own, just like I had. And in a weird way, I think they're better for it. Robert eventually sent a longer letter, pages of handwritten apology and reflection. He admitted he'd been trying to fix Sophia's problems because he felt guilty about enabling her poor choices. He acknowledged that he'd sacrificed me, the responsible one, to save the one who kept failing. He said he understood if I could never forgive him. I wrote back a shorter letter that said I appreciated his honesty but needed more time. I didn't know if I'd ever fully forgive them, and I was honest about that. But I was willing to try building something new, something that didn't involve me sacrificing myself for their approval. Sophia and I haven't spoken since that one phone call. Maybe someday we will, but I'm not pushing for it. She's living her life, raising her kids, working her jobs. I'm living mine. Sometimes distance is the healthiest option. I'm 29 now, 6 years after that confrontation in my parents' kitchen. I'm a partner at my firm. I own my home outright, and I have savings that would have seemed impossible when I was eating ramen in that freezing studio apartment. The most important thing I own, though, isn't the townhouse or the car or the retirement fund. It's the knowledge that I can trust myself. When everyone I loved told me I was wrong, selfish, heartless, I held firm. I knew my worth and refused to let anyone diminish it, even when it cost me everything. Would I make the same choice again? Absolutely. Every single time. Because here's what I learned: real family doesn't demand you set yourself on fire to keep them warm. Real love doesn't come with a price tag of 85% of your income. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from people who see you as a solution to their problems rather than a person worth protecting. I built the life I have now on my own terms, without owing anyone anything. That freedom is worth more than any family obligation, any guilt trip, any tearful plea at my doorstep. They showed up begging for money because they thought blood made me responsible for their mistakes. I said no because I finally understood that the only person I'm responsible for is myself. And that's the way it should have been all along. And I can't help but wonder, what would you have chosen?